and welcome to a new video. Today's video is going to be my wrap up for December and January, because I haven't done a wrap up for December and January, so I thought let's make a wrap up for the last few months that I've been reading and what books I've been reading. Let's go. So I will start from December to go up to January, but I will start in December. And the first book that I actually finished in December was a Swedish book by Jonas Gardell. He has been recently published a new book, and I finished it in the beginning of December. The book is called Ett lyckligare år. I don't know if the book has been translated yet into other language, but I do know that he has some books that has been translated into English. Is one of the language, but yes. So that was the first book that I actually finished. I listened to it on audiobook, by the way. And then I borrowed a book from my library. The Girl in Red by Christina Henry. I heard a lot about Christina Henry and her books, and this book is a retelling of the Red Riding Hood, but it's in a dystopian world, and I love dystopian books. I love reading a dystopian book, so for me, I did like it. But I will say this: the first half of the book was pretty slow, and I thought many times if I was going to DNF it, because I really just find it to be very boring at times. But then the second half of the book, it finally picked up, and I really just love the book. So now I want to read more of Christina Henry. By the way, Ett lyckligare år I gave 5 stars. It's and The Girl in Red I gave 3 stars. Then after I finished The Girl in Red, I wanted to read a Swedish book, I think, where I actually had to borrow it from my library, and I wanted to read the books I've been borrowing from my library. So the book I then read was Immortalia by Sophia Mickelson. This book has not been translated into any language yet. Maybe in the future it will be, but here's what I gave on Goodreads. I gave it like 4.5 star, and it's one of the most important books that do exist. And I hope that someday everyone, no matter where you are from, you will be able to read it, because this book was really an important book. It's about Rory, who has troubles at home, and she's escaping and trying to survive, and at on the road where she's trying to survive, she meets this new family that's helping her, and they are helping her trying to get on her feet and start a new life. But yeah, then stuff happens, but it's so important book. So that I read. Now we are in December still. But the last book that I actually read for 2021 was a Swedish book by Marianne Cedervall of Skuggor Mörkt. It's a cozy thriller. If you have read or seen any of Miss Marple, Agatha Christie, that is how I would explain this book. It's a cozy thriller with characters who are some are nice, some are actually even fun to read about, and some are not. But I found this book to be when I read this book, I was actually in a reading slump, and I never thought I would get over it. But this book actually helped me out of the reading slump. But I would say it's about I would explain it like it's a Agatha Christie or Miss Marple in a book. Yeah, it's nice. I hope that maybe one day she will actually get to have it published in other countries. Well, next book I do know that is translated into some other language. The book is called Sanctus Psycho, or The Asylum in English. I know this book has been translated into English, and in English this book is called The Asylum. It's the author is Johan Theorin. I will try to find the English translation. Here, let's see. A chilling Swedish psychological crime novel set between a nursery and a mental asylum, full of sinister intention, hidden identities, and dangerous secrets. Yeah, that's actually a good explanation of what the book is about. Yeah, and this is how the English book looks like on Goodreads. But yeah, The Asylum I did listen to. It took me a while to actually finish listening to it, but I did actually love the book. It's a horror story in some ways, and I love horror, so for me I did like it. I understand why so many people do like this book. So yeah. And now we are gonna talk about, I did actually read a book in Sanctus Psycho, or The Asylum. I gave 5 stars, and yeah. Now we are in January, and I finished The Asylum in January, of course. But then after I finished that book, I did read for school, and I will talk about it in the last. I'll talk about it later when I finish every book that I'm reading for fun. So the next book was an ebook. It's a Swedish book. It's just been released, and I don't think it will be translated in any way soon, but maybe in the future. Well, the book is called Klara Klumphjärta. It's a heartwarming book, but also a very, very important book about mental health, and yeah. And it's also in the book, the author explains that it's very important to be yourself, no matter what. So I gave that book 4 or 5 stars. Next book I did listen to was a Swedish book by Camilla Sten and her mother Viveka Sten. It's called Djupgraven. This is what I wrote on Goodreads. I gave this book 3.5 stars. For me it was just an okay book. And that's basically what I think. It's a middle grade book. So if you are between 9 and 12, you might find this book even better. But yeah, I did not continue with this series. Now we are gonna talk about. I'm gonna talk about the last book that I listened to on audiobook for January. It was I Survived, a True Story. I married a charming man and then he tried to kill me. Here's a little bit of what it's about. It's a true story of what happened to Victoria Sillers. I don't know how to pronounce her last name, but it's a chilling, eye-opening story of a marriage and attempt murder, revealing the truth about a case that made headlines around the world. On Easter Sunday 2015, experienced skydiver Victoria Killers undertook a parachute jump, a gift from her husband, British Army Sergeant Emil Killers. Her parachutes failed to open and she plumped 4,000 feet to the ground, sustaining life-threatening injuries. Miraculously, she survived. And then you get to follow Victoria when she also before the attempt, when she met Emil, and how they fell in love and got married, and then how we then up till the day where it actually happened, and then during the trial, and when he get his sentence. So yes, that's basically the book. And I must say, the book was amazing. I mean, I listened to it and the audiobook was great, and the narrator was awesome. I mean, I loved it so much that I feel like I want to listen to it again just because of the narrator. So I really do recommend it. And now we are going to talk about the last 2 books. One of the books that I actually have here at home was Alice and the Fly, or in Swedish, Alice och Flugan. I I had this for my bookshelf for, yeah, I don't know, maybe 2 years, maybe even 3 years. So I thought now I should read this book. So I actually did it, and I did read it, but I will say it's a good book. But I will say that I find this book to be very slow. That's my biggest problem with this book, was that this book was too slow for me. I find it to be quite boring, just because you follow Greg, who he's a teenage boy, and he has a lot of trouble. He has problem in school, he has problem at home, and he doesn't really know how to not pronounce, but show his feelings, and the family is quite dysfunctional, and he doesn't really have any friends either. But one day he sees this girl named Alice, and he gets a bit obsessed. Not upset. He gets very attached to her, and he feels that they are friends. He's so in control. So you get to follow him, who, when he thinks that Alice and him are friends, and he can't really stop thinking about her. And through this book, you actually get to understand that it's actually something more in this book that's he needs help with. And I do think this book is a very good book if you want to read about schizophrenia and how when it's not been treated. I know I did a reading blog on this, but I didn't mention it in that reading blog. But now when I actually have read it, yes. So it's a good book in that way, but for me, I just think it's too slow, so I don't see myself read this again. But I am glad I actually did. But yeah. Now the last book was the book for school. The Corrections by Jonathan Francione. Well, this is like a tragic story of this family that you get to follow through this book. And it's very, very tragic and dysfunctional, and yeah, it was not a good book. If it wasn't for school, I probably wouldn't have read it. So yeah, I'll say this: the last 100 pages in this book was the most interesting parts, and some part when you read from the youngest child, the niece. Otherwise, I didn't really think this book was so good. But you know, I've read it now, and I started off reading a big chunk of book this year. But I gave this like 2 stars. So that was all the books I've been reading the last few months, or the last 2 months. Like I said, I probably had a real slump in the beginning of November, but in December and now in January it's been quite better, so I feel pretty good. I've been reading books that I have been having on my bookshelf for a while, and yeah, that feels nice. So yeah, let me know what you read in January. Have you read any good books? Have you DNF a book? Did not finish a book? Let me know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe, like, and leave a comment. That would make me happy. And then we'll talk about the books you read recently. Bye! And don't forget that you also can share my videos also, so anyone will find. So I'll see you soon. Bye!